Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to crack open the work of one of history's absolute giants, René Descartes. But we're not just going to talk about his philosophy. Nope. We're going to reveal the hidden blueprint for his revolutionary science. And let me tell you, the architect he needed to build it all, well, it might just surprise you.
So how do you build a whole new reality when the old one has just completely shattered? I mean, this wasn't some abstract puzzle. This was the real, honest-to-goodness problem facing thinkers back in the 17th century. Their entire understanding of the universe had just collapsed, leaving this huge vacuum of uncertainty. And, to build something new, you've got to first understand what fell apart in the first place.
Right, so before Descartes could even start building his new world of science, this amazing world based on math and pure reason, he had to clear away all the rubble of the old one. He had to show everyone, decisively, why the old foundations were just completely, totally broken. I mean, just think about the shockwaves this sent through everything. First, boom, the discovery of America. The old maps, totally wrong. Then, Copernicus comes along and, get this, dethrones the Earth from the center of everything. And if that wasn't enough, Giordano Bruno pops up and suggests the universe isn't some cozy little snow globe, but a mind-bendingly infinite expanse. All those old certainties from the scholastics, the stuff based on Aristotle, poof, they were just gone.
So, smack in the middle of all this chaos and doubt, Descartes comes forward with this incredibly radical new starting point for all knowledge. He basically says, hey everyone, to find the truth, stop looking at the confusing world out there. The answer isn't out there. Instead, we need to look inward, deep into the structure of our own minds.
You see, the old way, the scholastic way, was all built on our senses. What you see, what you hear, what you touch, that was supposed to be the basis for science. But Descartes thought this was just like building a house on sand. I mean, come on, our senses fool us all the time, right? A stick in water looks bent, the sun looks tiny in the sky. He argued that any knowledge you build on that stuff is just going to be opinion or prejudice. It's never ever going to be real certainty.
Okay, and this is his absolutely brilliant move. Descartes believed that the most fundamental truths of the universe, we're talking math, logic, the very idea that things exist, they weren't things you had to go out and discover, no. He said they were innate ideas, already inside our minds. It's like they were divine seeds, planted in us from the very beginning, just waiting for us to cultivate them with our reason.
So, this is the crucial point right here. He set up a brand new gold standard for what counts as true. He's basically saying, forget what your eyes and ears tell you. The real test is this. Is an idea so crystal clear and so distinct in your mind that there is just no way you can possibly doubt it? Think about it like 2 + 2 = 4. You can't really doubt that, can you? That's what he's talking about. But this raises a really, really big question.
Okay, but wait. Descartes realized he had a potentially fatal flaw in his logic. I mean, what if our reason itself is flawed? If that's the case, his whole amazing system is built on, well, nothing. He needed an absolutely unshakable bedrock for everything he was building. And guess where he found it? He found it in God.
I mean, this is the ultimate skeptical challenge, isn't it? If our senses can fool us, how can we be 100% sure that our own reason isn't just another grand illusion? How can we really trust our own minds, even with those clear and distinct ideas? Well, Descartes' answer didn't come from physics or math. It came from metaphysics.
His argument goes like this. We all have this built-in, innate idea of a perfect being, God. And the God who's talking about isn't random or mysterious, no. This God is fundamentally a being of perfect reason and perfect consistency. A God who is infinite, eternal, and, this is super important, completely unchanging.
And check out the logic here. It's pretty much airtight. Step 1. A perfect being, by definition, is not a deceiver. It wouldn't lie. Step 2. This perfect God created our minds and our ability to reason. So, step 3. A perfect God wouldn't have given us a faulty reason that tricks us, right? That would make God a deceiver. Which means, conclusion, when we use our reason correctly, focusing only on those clear and distinct ideas, it has to correspond to reality. God becomes the ultimate guarantee for all of human knowledge.
All right, so with God guaranteeing his reason is legit, Descartes could finally get to work. Now he could build his entire new physics from the ground up, using nothing but those clear and distinct ideas. So the big question is, what did this new universe of his actually look like?
Well, he basically took the universe and stripped it bare. All those subjective qualities the old physics loved, color, heat, sound, even purpose, he got rid of them. So what was left? A cold, silent, purely mathematical reality. For Descartes, the only thing that's truly real is what he called geometric extension. In other words, space, defined by size, shape, and motion. That's it.
And from that single idea, he figured out the laws of his new physics. And here's the kicker. Because God is unchanging, the laws that God set up for this universal machine must also be eternal and unchanging. God kicks things off with a certain amount of motion in the very beginning, and that exact amount of motion is conserved, forever. The universe for Descartes is basically a perfect, predictable machine that just runs and runs on mathematical laws.
But, this beautiful, elegant, mechanical system, it wasn't perfect, not by a long shot. In fact, it created some really deep, really difficult problems that Descartes himself honestly struggled to solve for the rest of his life.
Okay, here's the big one. If the entire physical world is just this closed system, a machine running on unbreakable laws of motion, how can our non-physical mind, our soul, our free will, how can it possibly make our arm move? How does something that isn't physical interact with something that is physical without totally breaking the laws of physics?
And yeah, the problem goes the other way too. If the world out there is really just colorless, silent geometry bumping around, then where do our rich, vivid experiences come from? Why does one set of particles vibrating feel like the beautiful color red, and another set feel like the sound of a trumpet? Where does all the flavor of life come from?
His solution was, well, let's call it creative. He actually proposed that this tiny little thing in the center of the brain, the pineal gland, was the bridge between mind and body. And he argued that our sensations, like seeing red, aren't true knowledge of the world. They're just symbols or signals that the mind uses for a very practical reason, to help us navigate the world and, keep our bodies from getting hurt.
So this all leads to a really fascinating conclusion. For Descartes, you've basically got two different tiers of knowledge. On the one hand, you have the laws of the universe. We can know these through pure reason, and since they're guaranteed by God, our knowledge of them is universal and absolutely certain. But then, on the other hand, you have your knowledge of particular things happening in the world right now. And since that comes from our unreliable senses, it can only ever be probable and practical, not certain.
And that, right there, is the central tension that Descartes left for everyone who came after him. He built this magnificent, beautiful machine of a universe, but the single pin holding the entire thing together was this very specific metaphysical idea of God. So the question he leaves us with is a big one. If a perfect scientific system needs God to hold it all together, what happens to science when you take God away? That is the puzzle that science and philosophy have been trying to solve ever since.